All right, so we're in lesson 12. This is on page 234. Here are your goals. You do need to write these down, so if that means you need to pause the video and write them down, go ahead and do that. It says, I can explain what we mean by the solution to a system of linear equations. And I'm highlighting that because that is new information that we have not talked about yet in this section. And we can explain how the solution is represented graphically. I can explain what we mean when we refer to two equations as a system of equations, and I can use tables and graphs to solve systems of equations. So you probably see that we are going to be talking about systems of equations in this lesson, which, yes, it is a new concept that is new for Algebra 1, but it's combining a lot of the stuff we've already done in previous lessons into this new concept. So it's not just completely a brand new concept. So this says lesson 12, we're going to be writing and graphing systems of linear equations. So right here it says Diego bought some raisins and walnuts to make trail mix. Raisins cost $4 a pound. Walnuts cost $8 a pound, and Diego spent $15 on both ingredients. So it says decide if each pair of values could be a combination of raisins and walnuts that Diego bought. So what it's wanting you to do is it's wanting you to take each one of these combinations of raisins and walnuts and seeing if it meets our $15 constraint. So in order to do this, it helps to like take your paper over here, and I can't draw a straight line, and you're gonna divide it up into each little problem so that we can stay organized. Okay, so this says we have 4 pounds of raisins and we have 2 pounds of walnuts. So we want to know if we can get that much of each and still spend our $15. Well, in order to answer this question, we need to know how much the raisins and walnuts cost. And right up here it says raisins cost $4. I'm going to write that down. And if raisins cost $4 for 1 pound, how much is it going to cost for 4 pounds? How would you do that mathematically? Well, we would take it and we would multiply it. All right, then we have walnuts cost $8, so I'm going to write that down. And we've got 2 pounds. So I'm going to take that $8, I'm going to multiply it by 2. Well, if I want to find the total, then I'm going to have to add, and then it has to meet our $15 constraint. Okay? So let's simplify that. We have 4 times 4, which is 16, plus we have 8 times 2, which is 16, and that has to equal 15. Well, what's 16 plus 16? That's 32, and that does not equal 15. So 4 pounds of raisins and 2 pounds of walnuts will not work to meet our $15 constraint. So what I want you to do is I want you to work out these other 3 problems, and I want you to determine which ones would be considered a solution and which ones would not be considered a solution. So I'm going to go ahead and keep working mine while y'all are working yours, and you can just use mine as a reference, but I will not be talking through them. Gotta get my calculator. Okay, so after working all of those out, I realized that this one is the only one where both of those values would make my equation true. So this activity was a good activity to see, just to be reminded about what a solution is. And a solution is a value that makes your equation true. So it can be one value that makes it true, or in this case, it's two values that meet our constraint or make our equation true. So going on to this next one, it says, here's a situation you saw earlier. Diego bought some raisins and walnuts. Raisins cost $4 a pound, walnuts cost $8 a pound, and Diego spent $15 on both ingredients. So it wants us to write an equation to represent this constraint. We're going to let X be the pounds of raisins, and we're going to let Y be the pounds of walnuts. Okay? So for this one, anytime I'm writing an equation, I like to know what my total amount that we're working with here, or whatever my constraint is. And in this case, it's 15. Okay, so I know that that needs to be what my equation is set equal to. Okay, and that $15 is made up of the price of raisins and the price of walnuts. Okay, so if I'm talking about 1 pound of raisins, I know it's going to cost $4. But if I have multiple pounds of raisins, I'm going to have to take that price and I'm going to have to multiply it by however many pounds we get. Okay, so that's going to be 4 times X. And then I'm going to add that to the price of the walnuts times however many pounds of walnuts I get. So that is my equation for this situation. All right, so when we get here on part B, it says use graphing technology to graph the equation. So now, from now on, when you see that it wants us to use graphing technology, I need you to write down this website right here, Desmos. Okay, so how you get there is you're just going to simply open up your Google Classroom. You'll find your class. Under classwork, at the very top, I have put it there where it will be easy to find. You don't have to scroll anywhere to find it. So click on Desmos, follow the link, and it takes you to this graphing calculator website. And right over here on the side, you can just type in your equation. So we had 4x plus 8y equals 15. And right here, it gave me a red line. It's just randomly whatever color they give you. So I know that for this particular equation on my graph, it's going to be the one that is red. And you're probably like, obviously, Ms. Frisbee, that's the only thing on the graph. But in the future, when we start doing multiple equations on here, it's going to assign each equation a different color. Okay, so we know that when we graph a line on a coordinate plane, if I click anywhere on this line, I know that each one of those X and Y coordinates represents a solution. It's the amount of pounds of raisins and the amount of pounds of walnuts that makes our equation true. Okay, so going back to our notes, so we did that, we graphed it on our technology, boom. Now we're given this table to complete. It says complete the table with the amount of one ingredient Diego could have bought given the other. Be prepared to explain or show your reasoning. So automatically I notice my raisins, which represents my X values, and my walnuts, which represents my Y values. Okay, so it's wanting us to find these missing values in my table given what the other variable represents. So there's actually 2 ways you can go about finding these. One is by using our equation. Well, you're going to technically use the equation in both, but this one, we're just going to label it like this. You're going to use the equation. And the second way we're going to do is by graphing. And then you can determine which one you like better and do the table that way. Okay, so for the equation, we're going to start with the equation we came up with together. 4x plus 8y equals 15. Okay, so in this first thing, it tells us that x equals 4. So that means we're trying to find what h equals. Okay, so I have an equation. I have a variable. What can I do? I can substitute it. So I have 4, and instead of x, I'm going to put in my 0 plus 8y equals 15. Okay, so once again, it's wanting me to find my y, so that's what I need to be solving for is my y. So I know that 4 times 0 is 0, so that essentially just cancels it out. And then I have 8y equals 15. Well, if I'm trying to get that y by itself, that's 8 times y, so I'm going to divide both sides by 8. And I get y equals 15 divided by 8 is 1.875. So that would be what I would put over here in my table. All right, so the other way we're going to do it is by using Desmos to graph. And I know it seems like a hassle to go to Desmos, but once you realize how much easier it is to do that, then you will want to use it more. So once again, we have our equation that we graphed, 4x plus 8y equals 15, and we know that x equals 0. So we want to know what y equals. Okay, so I'm going to go back to my Desmos calculator. I already have my equation typed in, so right below it, I'm just going to type in x equals 0, because that's what it told me. If it was x equals 5, then that's what I would type in, but that's not what it said. It said x equals 0. All right, and we'll notice this line is blue. Whoops, this line is blue. So if I know that every single value that ends up on this red line is a solution, then I'm going to try to find where those two lines intersect. I'm going to zoom in. I'm going to see where that blue line crosses through my red line. And right there, when x equals 0, what does my y equal? 1.875, which is exactly what we got when we worked it out, which is which makes sense. It's the same thing. I'm just showing you two different ways to solve it. Okay, so that would be what you put in the graph. Okay, and then if you were doing the same thing for, if you knew what y equals, then you would take your equation. We're trying to find x. We know that y equals 1.375. Then we could just go to our graph. And this is y equals 1.375. Okay, this time I get a vertical line, but that doesn't change anything. It's green. And I'm going to see where it crosses through my original equation, which is right there. So when my y is 1.375, then my x equals 1. All right, so I'm going to give you a second. I want you to practice doing the rest of the table on your own. Okay? And here in a second, I will come back and I will put the answers in it. All right, those are all of your answers. So whether you did it by graphing or by plugging it into the equation, these are the values that you should have gotten. Now, if you have any questions on that, you can message me, you can send it in the chat. But yeah, that is how you do it.